Hi, my name is Edie Cohn, and I'm an artist that lives in Durham, North Carolina, United States. I've been an artist for about 50 years now, starting out with going to college, a junior college in California, and taking a lot of art classes. And I found that the art class that I really enjoyed the most was life drawing classes. So in the 10 years past that, every year I would, all the time, wherever I lived, I would join life drawing classes, or I would have them in my own home. Eventually we settled in Durham, North Carolina, and I started taking life drawing classes in Scarborough at the Art Center, and I became the person who was in charge of finding models. And I did that for a while, and then I started to do not so much doing nudes of regular models, but I invited senior citizens who had a program in the same building to come and pose for us. And by starting to draw senior citizens, I turned from doing life drawing classes or being involved with that to portraiture. And then I started having shows, and I joined an organization called Center Gallery that was a women's cooperative, very much a feminist group. And this was in the early 80s. And so I joined that group, and we had a number of shows together, and I became the gallery director of the Art Center for a few years. And then my life, I started to do pictures of homeless people or people without homes in the shelter in Durham. I had a friend who was the director there, and he allowed me to come every Thursday morning, bringing my art supplies, and I would do charcoal portraits of anybody who wanted to have a drawing done of them. And I just wanted to have a show of people without homes, because I like the idea of people not having any expectations of what the portrait would end up looking like. And homeless people really don't have very much of an ego in terms of how you draw them. I mean, they just loved everything that I did. And so I gave them a nice print of the finished drawing, and I gave the shelter a print of the finished drawing. It soon became clear to me that the people who I was drawing had incredible stories. And so then I started to bring along a tape recorder and would tape anything that they wanted to tell me while I was drawing them. And the project turned into a much larger project than I had anticipated. And eventually, 10 years after that, I got a very large grant from the North Carolina Humanities Council to go out and try to find the people who I had drawn and interviewed 10 years earlier. And with that project, we had a show at the public library, and also we had these forums in which we had city council members, leaders in our community all come and listen to the stories that some of the homeless people who were willing to talk about it talked. And we also had a panel of people, myself included, and the rest of them were homeless people who were in my project, who I had drawn like in the early 90s and now 2000. And I talked about the importance or what the project meant to them, to having me not only draw them, but to listen with full attention to what they were saying. I spent a long time trying to find the publisher for this project, turning it into a book, and I finally gave up. Oh, and then about the same time, I started drawing newborn babies at a local hospital after my daughter was born. I thought that that would be a potential way for me to earn money rather than just if I needed to earn money, and I really did want to earn money, than to just go work at the local McDonald's or something. And so I approached the hospital, and it took a number of years, but they finally let me come in twice a week to draw portraits in charcoal of newborn babies, sometimes in the nurseries, mostly in the rooms. And during a period of 12 years, I did about 3,500 drawings. Finally, I got tired of that, and I thought about doing paint. Paintings that I had done earlier were very bright and loud in colors, and I never thought that people would really want to buy from me a portrait that I did of them with all of those crazy colors. But I decided, well, I'm not going to try to make money doing portraits, but I'm just going to try to paint things that I want to paint. And so I painted farm animals and painted portraits of people that I had met on my travels in Guatemala and Peru, and then also people that my friends had photographed when they were traveling. I've always been fascinated with other cultures, and I've tried to use my art as a way of connecting with other cultures. Also, in the late 80s, our family took an RV trip across the Southwest, and we came upon Indian dedication of a trail dedication. It used to be called the Lewis and Clark Trail, but the United States decided to rename it after the people who were actually the Native Americans who used that trail way before the Lewis and Clark expedition, and who also helped guide them through it. And it became called the Nimipu Trail, which means we the people. But we just discovered it. We had no idea. We were just driving down this road, and the road was about to be blocked because there was this big celebration, and there were these teepees that were all set up on the side of, way up on a field. And we decided, I talked my husband into letting me, stop the RV, let's just park it. And I just took my drawing supplies and I went up to the celebration, and there were dignitaries there from the government. But there were the Native Americans, that the men especially were just all decked out in their full regalia. And I talked to some of their daughters and said, can I, do a drawing of your father or your parent or your chief? And I did about 4 of them that day, and ended up giving them a copy of it later when I finally finished the drawing. This is one of the few times that I ever took photographs of people rather than just doing them totally from life, because I couldn't deal with all of the detail on their costumes and their beads and stuff. And I thought I would need a month or 2 to work on that. And then when I did get done with it, that's when I sent the pictures to them. And I had a beautiful relationship with one of the people. We exchanged many letters over the years after that, talking about how it's not possible that a white person could see someone's soul. And anyways, that was a good story. It was a good experience for me. Another thing that I have done in the past is I have taught drawing lessons to many different groups. I mean, blind people, just children, senior citizens. I've done it all, but the class that I enjoyed the most was with a program called TROSA that's located in Durham. And it's a 2-year program for people who have had addiction problems. And they work those people incredibly all day long, every day. But in the evenings, one evening a week, they would let some of the people come into my drawing class, portrait class that I was teaching. And I set it up so that I would teach them how to do portraiture, but I also made sure that everybody would write about what it felt like to be drawing, what it was like for them that evening. And the stories that came out of it were sort of sad in that for the people who were in this program, drawing and touching into their creativity that they had lost, that they had remembered from when they were in high school and grade school, but now it was as being addicted for how many years that they were finally coming out and feeling those feelings again. So that was that made me feel good to know that I was helping them, or at least I was helping them rediscover a wonderful part of themselves. And then the next thing that happened with that project was that we would have shows in the area at local colleges in the Triangle area. We had maybe 4 or 5 of them. And their organization would cater the shows, and we did a lot of advertising. And everybody in the show and all of the people from TROSA who were doing the catering and who could come, everybody had tuxedos on. And they were so very, very proud to be part of the project. And that was really special for me to witness and to share with them. I have a granddaughter who is 6 years old now, but when she was born, she was born with a number of disabilities. And it was pretty devastating to our family trying to deal with that. And for 2 years, I stopped doing my artwork. But when we finally got her through the hardest stages, and she's doing really well now, but those were rough 2 years, I thought, well, I want to go back to my artwork, but I don't really want to do any painting because it's pretty intense and structured. And so I decided I would just start out in a new medium. And I took a class at the local Arts Council, and it was in collage. And I really had a good time doing collage, making the papers that I was going to use, and met some wonderful people. And that's what I've been doing ever since. One of the people that I met in my class was Shirley, who was about 93 years old at the time. And she let me take some photographs of her. I said I wanted to take pictures of her hands because I think hands are pretty amazing, especially hers. But the photos that I took actually encompassed more. And so I did this one collage of Shirley. And it was really, it had just so much life into it. And I thought that maybe I could do more, but I actually had to do more because during this time, I was also a new member of a gallery in New York called Soho 20. And I was a member who was outside of the city, and we would have a group show for a month in summer. And so I had to produce work, and I wanted to do collages. So then I did a portrait of myself for that. And I've just been doing collages ever since. And the backdrop here is an example of one of my collages. The actual collage is much smaller, but it's been printed on a polar fleece blanket. And but anyways, that's what it looks like. I've been doing. Ooh, that's a good one. All right. Okay. So you're going to start coloring?
You have to push the crayon against the paper hard.
To make it work right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is it my turn?
Mm-hmm. With Maya, I'm going to use Maya to go with that other color. Flip in that part.
Who's going to do that?
You.
And I'm going to use this color?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a pretty blue. I like that.
Great Edie.
Wow. Now should we do things to go and connect them, or should you want to do another shape?
Things. Things, okay.
Huh?
Things.
We're going to make lines to connect things?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we got to rub. Oops.
Rub it.
Oh, okay.
Smear it.
Smear it?
Smear it.
Okay. Okay.
Smear it.
Okay, you want me to see you in the picture?
Smear it.
Smear it, smear it, smear it.
Smear it.
You know, it's really getting more beautiful all the time. Everything you're doing is making it prettier.
See, I'm a two-hand winner. I can draw with both hands.
You can draw with both hands. That's pretty exceptional. You know, I don't think any artist does that. Draws with both hands at the same time.
Except for Alia and Alice.
They do that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. A potter uses both hands to do that. A lot of...
What?
First I want to say is that I like working in mediums that are forgiving. You can't really screw them up. Charcoal, you can erase to your heart's content and keep redoing it, and you can still come out with something good. Same with the painting with acrylics. And collage is like that too. I mean, I just put one layer after another until I got what I wanted to. And then the other thing about shapes that are different lightnesses and darknesses and also different colors. It's sort of like if you can make the right shape or the right color and you can tear it out or draw it or whatever and put it in the right place on your project, it's going to turn out good. And collage was definitely something that worked well with that mindset.
What kind of materials do you use in collage?
I happen to have a whole pile of acid-free paper that I had been using as layers between all of my drawings. And that was the perfect paper for collage. And our instructor, when I was taking the class, said, well, you know, we used a roller and stencils, and don't ever clean out your roller until you have used all the leftover paint to cover a piece of paper, and then start putting more colors and more stencil shapes on it. And that's what I did. I mean, and this is using acrylics, and this is using a roller that you just buy at a hardware store, a little 4-inch across, 4-inch wide roller, and just buy stencils wherever you can buy stencils, or cut them out with plastic. And I just have a great time just making big messes and doing all these colors and shapes and stuff on paper. And in the final stages of my paintings, I just go back through this whole big pile. Like I have probably, I don't know, 50, 60 sheets of paper that I've painted, and I just rip out parts that were the right color or the right darkness, and just glue them, use matte medium, and put them on whatever the collage project I'm working on.
So are you working right now on a series?
I am working on, and I've done this forever. It's probably been 2 years, but I've been working on a collage as a portrait for a family that I've gotten a commission to do. Doing these collages, a portrait collage, is really, really time consuming and hard work. It's like building a stone fence. You have to find all of these pieces that'll fit in this spot or that spot. And, you know, when I go to my studio to work, I might put in 3 scraps of paper on the painting. So it's a tedious job. And what I'm currently doing is that portrait, but I do smaller collages that are abstract paintings, similar to what you see behind me. That's the most fun. And I like to have fun.
How do you bridge this introverted nature of yours with your desire to reach out to people and portray them?
Well, you're right that I am a bit on the shy side, and it is a bit difficult to ask anybody to either photograph them or to do a portrait of them. Sometimes I don't have the courage to do it, and sometimes I do. My homeless project was a perfect example of a perfect situation for me, in that I didn't have to do much work at all to find people who would let me draw them. But I am a lot more out. I do like to connect with people. I think when it comes to my art, I'm very isolated. You know, I work by myself, besides when I do live drawings of people. But I don't want anybody coming into my studio and telling me what they think of what I'm doing. I could care less of what others feedback from other people. But in my other world of just being a regular person with family and friends and stuff, I'm pretty outgoing, but not in my art. I love color, and I like to use it. I like to make it as strong as I can in the paintings I do. I think you could call me probably more of a colorist than a portrait artist. And one thing that's probably you might find interesting is that when I do a portrait or a painting, a portrait, or a piece of artwork, I try to make it look as horrible and awful and gaudy and just hard to look at in the beginning. And then I spend the rest of the time toning it down, making it come together till I'm finally happy. And it really zings because there is still this whole element of chaos that I started out with, but it's under control, but yet it's not necessarily under control. But I like that challenge. I like chaos, and I like trying to calm it down.
What about nature?
I like taking photographs of nature. I have a hard time composing pictures and stuff when everything around me is green. It's just too hard for me to figure out where the picture is, how to compose it all. So I used to do plein air stuff. I took workshops on that and everything, but that's not something I was ever got to be comfortable with.
You seem to be an animal lover as well. Do you do portraits of animals?
Yeah, I do quite a few commissions for people. Dogs are a favorite subject. I mean, I used to do that. Now I don't do that too much because I think people see me as sort of being retired. But I really, as I'm aging, I don't want to do stuff that I don't want to do. And it's got to be interesting for me to do it. But I do like animals, and I love farm animals. Two of my kids went to this college in the mountains of North Carolina that started out as a school for Appalachian farmers, kids who came from farming families. And the school has got a big farm on it, and the kids run the programs, and many of like the cleaning and the cafeteria and the veterinarian work, and they've got cattle and pigs and big gardens. And anyways, they have a very good program with pigs, and I love going every time. We go by there. Go to the mountains, we see this college, and we stop by maybe once a year, and I always take pictures of all the baby pigs. And I think I'm going to do a painting, and I have done a number of paintings, but you can only do so many paintings and not have any place to put them.
Can you burn out as an artist doing what you love?
No, I think there's this creativity in you that you gotta use somewhere. That's just a given. But you can keep changing that. Like for me, I'm very happy doing creative projects we have a motorhome, and I make wall hangings and pouches, and I do a lot of inventing of stuff. And so that's inventing practical things that I need. Another thing is this last year, in 2020, I did an artist residency in India, and I lived in a village for 5 weeks where all of the people were artisans who did these really traditional art forms. And 5 weeks, I learned 5 different techniques. So that's a different way of using your creativity and not necessarily coming out with masterpieces, but it's all part of who you are and your viewpoint of the world.
You lived in many countries and many cultures. How did it influence your path and your thinking as an artist?
I see everybody and anybody as just a part of the whole big picture of humanity. I don't see a big drawing, a big line between me and the next person, no matter how different their culture is. I mean, they care about their children. They want the best for their families. They want the world. They have very similar wants or beliefs or hopes for their future. So I like to connect with people because I like to show that idea that even though I've done a painting of this person who came into the restaurant when I was in Guatemala and was trying to sell me these little wooden angels and he didn't have all that many teeth, or he did, but anyways, he was just a very humble man, and I did a painting of him, and I just wanted to show the joy that was in his smile and who he was. I connect with people on a spiritual level that's really, it's sort of like a different sense. It's like you have 6 senses or 7 senses, and this is an extra one. The way that I connect with people on this other level.
How does your husband support you as an artist?
He has always been supportive of me. He's basically let me do my own thing, but has never told me I can't do things. And when I want to go on a artist residency here or there or whatever, he's a little bit worried about me. Especially though this time I went to India by myself, but he is supportive. He's not somebody that'll come to my show unless I drag him, but he appreciates that I do what I like and that other people appreciate my work. I think the pandemic has been a real serious challenge for artists who want to be out there with their clients or want to be out with people or are fed by fellow artists. And that whole world was pretty much shut down because you had to stay home and so on and so forth. You could paint alone, but if you're a person who needed other people and other artists, you have a hard time. You had a hard time. Behind me, this is a good example of my abstract work. But yes, I have done quite a bit of abstract, nothing huge. Biggest something will be is maybe 16 by 20 inches. So I don't work big, and I like actually when I do abstracts, I like doing very small stuff, like maybe 4 by 6 inches. That's a canvas size that I can be abstract and create a world and have control of it. Yeah. In fact, if you want to know more about it, I have this website, or not a website, but I'm part of this website that's called Spoonflower, and they will take your designs and put them on their website. There's Edie Cohn. I'm on their Spoonflower, and they make wallpaper. They make all different kinds of material, anything and everything out of my artwork, and especially all of these small abstracts. They do this mirror image thing, and they turn out just beautiful. And I've got lots of wrapping paper with all my different designs on it. I like doing small abstracts to relax. And I didn't tell you about this, but I adopted a boy from Nicaragua when he was a teenager, and it took me, and we took over a year to do it, and I spent a lot of time in Nicaragua, and it was incredibly stressful. And one day I finally went to a marketplace, and I found out a place where I could buy paints, acrylics. And I had a lot of acrylic paint at home, but I bought it there because I knew it was going to save my sanity. And I started painting these small abstracts, and it just made such a huge difference for me in my mental health, being able to paint. And I was really, really stressed out. And small abstracts will do that for me. I have taught so many different classes. I started out, I got talked into teaching, I used to do jewelry making. And I got talked into doing a jewelry class for people who were visually impaired and blind. That was the first class that I did in terms of teaching. And then I started teaching senior citizens, and I started being a teacher at different nursing homes and rest homes. I did that for 2-3 years. I worked with kids with disabilities. Oh, one thing that I did that I really thought was a wonderful experience for me is we lived in Nashville, Tennessee, while my husband was in college, and we were just a block away from this school that was just for kids who had disabilities. They were just separated from the rest of the world. And I went there and I said, well, I'd like to teach some classes, art classes. And so they thought, well, that's a great idea if this lady wants to try to do that. And so they gave me like one class, and I went in there and I would do art projects, painting with them and stuff. And then every week they started adding more people to my classes. And finally I was doing the whole school. And some of these kids could barely move their hands. And I loved making adaptive equipment for them. I would, every week I would come back with pencils that would be easier to hold, and just different things that I could to make it easier for the the children that I was working with. Anyways, that was a real positive experience for me. Working with the TROSA, with the drug addicts, that was extremely rewarding. I haven't really taught that. I've given private lessons to people. I don't really feel like I have. I can teach somebody portraiture, and I'm a pretty mean teacher, telling me exactly how they have to do it, how they have to think about shapes and lights and darks. But painting, I can't teach that because that's just such a personal thing. Everybody has got their own voice, their own vision, and I don't want to mess with that. And so they end up feeling that I'm not giving them much instruction. And it's true. Well, a long time ago, I used to do jewelry for a living. And I did go to a lot of shows, and I swore I would never go down that path again, because you end up making things that will sell and not that are really truly pieces of art that come from your soul. So I don't go to shows. I don't want to paint pictures that people will like. I do have studios, like I have a studio in Durham at a renovated textile mill. It's a beautiful old building, and there's about 25 of us artists there. And so there's third Fridays. The public comes and looks around and talks with you and drinks your wine. But I don't really have a gallery that shows my work, except for this one that's called Soho 20 in Brooklyn or New York City. And that now they have bit the dust in terms of having a storefront, and now they're a virtual thing. And they just started up again. And actually, if you look for my artwork on that website, you would not find it because I have not submitted my work to it yet, but I will.
A message or a quote or a few thoughts.
I think what's really the most important thing you could ever do for yourself as an artist is you can learn to listen to your internal voice. You need to block out all the teachers that you've had, all of the different voices of what you should be doing or how you should be doing it, but you have to start listening to yourself only. And if you can do that, then you're going to start coming up with artwork that is you. Whether it's good or bad, it'll be you, and it'll be your style, and it will be an extension of yourself. So listen to that voice. That's what I do. I used to, when I was in college years and years ago, I had incredible drawing teacher, really a good one. And then when I was in all these life drawing classes after that, whenever I was drawing somebody, I heard his voice. He'd say, "Now, Edie, you should do more here. You got to work more on this. You need to spend more time." And I didn't want to hear that voice. And I spent like 10, 15 years of not taking any more classes because I didn't want anybody else's voice in my head.